Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I'm bringing you a Dynasty rookie mock draft for my Patreon Discord. Make sure to join the Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice if you want to participate in the next one. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. Let's go. So we're going to take a look at this mock draft. We're going to go round by round, starting with round one. So if we look at round one, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Rome Odunze, JJ McCarthy, Brock Bowers, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, and Jonathan Brooks. So in a Superflex tight end premium league like this one, those top 8 pretty much are always the top 8. And then we get into that range. We have X Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Jonathan Brooks, players like that. So for me, I didn't really find any outliers at the top. I see this is how most drafts are going, with Jane Daniels at 3, Neighbors 4, May 5, Odunze 6, McCarthy 7, Bowers 8. X-Worthy at 9 is pretty chalk too. My best value really wasn't one that the only player that really came into value was Brian Thomas at 111, first round wide receiver behind a second round wide receiver who went at 110. But otherwise, like I just said, this round was almost straight chalk. So not too much to talk about. Worst value, Ladd McConkey. I don't mind him. I don't dislike him. He's a good fit on the Chargers. But it was a second round pick. And the production profile is just not good enough to go at 110 for me. I would take Brian Thomas over Ladd McConkey every single time. If you're choosing, I would take Jonathan Brooks over Ladd McConkey. I just think he has more value upside. If you're choosing between Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, that I get. I think those are similar prospects. So those are very close to me. But Ladd McConkey at 110, I just can't get behind it. If you really wanted to have Ladd McConkey, of course, there were no trades in this mock draft, but I would never take him at 110. I would either take someone else or trade back. Now, let's get into round 2. Now, round 2, I think, was more interesting. There were a lot of interesting picks in round 2. Bo Nix, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, Trey Benson, Adonai Mitchell, Michael Penix, Blake Corum, Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Jatavion Sanders, and Marshawn Lloyd. So again, I've split it up into best values and worst values, but there's a lot more to say in this round. My best values, Michael Penix at 206, Ricky Pearsall at 210, and Marshawn Lloyd at 212. So while Penix might take a while to start, the value, he was drafted 8th overall. The value of an 8th overall drafted quarterback is too good to pass up. He's going to be worth the 206 forever. I mean, until he's going to start. It's not like a quarterback drafted in the 20s who might never get a chance. Quarterback drafted 8th overall will get a chance. Now, we did see with Trey Lance that chance didn't last very long, but you're going to get a chance. And that was a very rare scenario. I expect that he'll get a chance to start and it'll last longer than 2 games. So I like the value of Michael Penix there. Then Ricky Pearsall at 210. I've learned my lesson of fading these first round wide receivers too far. I have Pearsall at 205 in my rankings. I just can't see how he would fall to 210. I really love the value there. I'd easily have taken him over Roman Wilson or Adonai Mitchell, for example. And then lastly, Marshawn Lloyd. He's not my favorite player, but third round running back with talent shouldn't slip to 212. I would easily have taken him a few picks earlier. Worst values in this round, Troy Franklin at 203, Adonai Mitchell 205, and Jatavion Sanders 211. As for Troy Franklin, I just cannot get behind taking a receiver in the 4th round at 203. Yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown exists. That's the one example in the last 6 years of a receiver in the 4th round being like excellent. It's very, very rare. Most players in the 4th round are total busts. So you do have a few success stories, but at 203, the risk is all on the acquiring side, so I just can't do it. As for Adonai Mitchell, I did like the player. I like the potential talent, but fell in the NFL draft way further than I think people expected, to the mid to late 2nd round. And then, you know, on top of that, he went to a spot in Indianapolis, which now a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm excited for that. I don't really know why. Anthony Richardson is going to run a lot. They have Jonathan Taylor. This is going to be a run-heavy offense. Michael Pittman, they just paid him. He's the one. He's not getting displaced. And Josh Downs was decent as a rookie. At best, Mitchell or Downs will be relevant. It's not going to be both. And I think the most likely odds are that it's neither. So it's just tough to draft Adonai Mitchell at 205. I don't see how you get that value back. And then lastly, Jatavion Sanders. While I do like him, I did not like that he went to the 4th round. I do not like him as an athletic player. He does have the production profile. He was an early declare, but the athleticism wasn't there. The NFL didn't like him. So while I like him as a player, I think he'll have a nice NFL career. For fantasy, I don't like the upside, especially not with the draft capital, especially not 211 in tight end premium, and especially not before Ben Sinnott, who went 2 rounds earlier and is in a much better situation. So yeah, I like nothing about the pick of Jatavion Sanders at 211. Let's roll into round 3. So round 3, Jalen Polk, Jalen Wright, Will Shipley, Devontae Walker, Ben Sinnott, Jermaine Burton, Malachi Corley, Bucky Irving, Luke McCaffrey, Braylon Allen, Javon Baker, and Ray Davis closed out the round. So let's look at our best values. For me, Jalen Polk at 301. He's an early 2nd round wide receiver drafted in the 3rd round here in this rookie draft. Usually, if you can get a 2nd round wide receiver in round 3 of the rookie draft, or 3rd round wide receiver in round 4 of the rookie draft, that is a value, or 1st round wide receiver in round 2. Usually those are values. Not always, but usually that's a value, especially considering Polk was drafted 37th overall. I get it. People like Javon Baker. I get it, but there's not a lot of established players on the Patriots depth chart. So at this point, Polk is absolutely a value. As for Sinnott, kind of talked about it when I talked about Jatavion Sanders. 305 in Superflex tight end premium. Great value for Sinnott. I think he's going to have an early role. So I would easily take him in the early 3rd or maybe even the late 2nd. And then lastly, Jermaine Burton. It's a great profile and a lot of opportunity in the Bengals offense. Maybe if Higgins is gone after 2024. So I just really like the value of Jermaine Burton. And especially since he fell for off-field concerns to the 3rd round, I think he has a good chance to pay off on this value. Worst values, Will Shipley, Devontae Walker, and Luke McCaffrey. So as for Will Shipley, it's not like I hate him. I just would have preferred to take Bucky Irving, who went later for sure. And, there are other running backs, even Isaac Guerrero, who went in the 4th round, we'll talk about, who I'd rather have over Will Shipley. He just doesn't excite me, especially at this value. The value is just not great. It's behind Saquon Barkley. I would like him more in the late 3rd. Not super excited. Devontae Walker, honestly, that might have been my least favorite pick of the whole draft. He just went to death, unfortunately. 4th round to the Ravens, that's just death. That's death. I mean, that's a death sentence. It's a fantasy death sentence. There's just no hope. There's no hope. We've said this every year. Oh, the Ravens will pass more. Oh, they're going to support more fantasy weapons. Oh, they're going to do this. Oh, they're going to do that. They've never done it. Never, not even once. Never. We even complained about them supporting Zay Flowers, who was a 1st round wide receiver. Devontae Walker just died in the NFL draft. He's barely worth a rookie pick. I have him in the late 4th. He went to the situation where there's just no hope. So unfortunately, I'm just totally out on Devontae Walker. And that sucks because I actually liked him pre-draft. And as for Luke McCaffrey, I really just feel like, while this is not the worst pick, I can't see how it pays off. I just don't see it. And I do think that the Commanders still really want another wide receiver. If they could have gotten Brandon Ayuk, I think they would have. I think they, are still interested. I just feel like he's a roster clogger type wide receiver. They also picked Ben Sinnott, and they have Austin Eckler, who kind of work in the same areas of the field as McCaffrey. And, one was paid and the other was a higher draft pick. I just don't see it for Luke McCaffrey. So I'm kind of out, even though he went in the 3rd round. But it was the last pick. If he went in the 1st pick of the 4th round, no one would be wanting to draft Luke McCaffrey. So just think about it that way. Round 4. So interestingly, in round 4, I still found that there were some interesting players. So we had Spencer Rattler, Kimani Vidal, Brendan Rice, Isaac Guerrero, Jalen McMillan, Audric Estime, Dylan Lobb, Malik Washington, Jacob Cowing, Cade Stover, Johnny Wilson, and Theo Johnson. So some interesting players there. Surprisingly still in round 4. My best values, talked about one of them, Isaac Garendo, 404. I love the value of running backs in the fourth. He was a focus of my sleeper video yesterday. He's on the cover. So to me, this was one of the best picks in the entire draft. As for Jalen McMillan at 405, again, I would rather have Jalen McMillan over Luke McCaffrey. He went earlier in the NFL draft. He was a better prospect. I think he's in a slightly better situation to earn playing time. I mean, it's close, but better prospect earlier in the NFL draft. I don't know why I would prefer Luke McCaffrey to Jalen McMillan. Not that I like McMillan, but he's a value at even if I don't like a player, there's still a value at some point. And then Audric Estime, he actually was a pretty good prospect. Bad 40-yard dash caused him to fall down the NFL draft board. But at 406, a running back with a good production profile, I would not rule out. So I like the value just for that reason. And then worst values, Spencer Rattler, Brendan Rice, and Cade Stover. Well, I don't hate Rattler. I just think there were other decent picks. It's not the worst pick. Brendan Rice, kind of the same, but I don't see how I could take Brendan Rice ahead of like Jalen McMillan. I just don't understand that. Or even Malik Washington, I just think is a better bet than Brendan Rice. He went in the 7th round. So I don't hate Brendan Rice, but I'm not in at that price. And then Cade Stover. Yeah, I'm not in on Cade Stover at all. I don't think he's worth a draft pick. For me, Theo Johnson with Darren Waller probably retiring, and Eric All. They both went earlier in the NFL draft than Stover. And Johnson has more of an opportunity to play on the Giants for sure. And he went 2 picks later here. And Eric All, the Bengals, I know, have a big need at tight end. The problem with Cade Stover is that the Texans just signed Dalton Schultz to this contract extension. So what are you going to do? Pick Cade Stover and then wait forever for him to maybe be something? Is he even better than Brevin Jordan? That's not a guarantee that he's even the backup. So yeah, I'm totally not feeling Cade Stover. Well, that was our mock draft. So we covered that. And I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you love seeing what my patrons had to say and how they picked in that draft. And of course, you can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice up there. And you get my full rookie ranks, my dynasty ranks, the opportunity to participate in future mock drafts. You get to participate in the Patreon Discord. And at the higher tiers, you can ask me for DM advice about your dynasty team, either existing or a new startup. And we have some advanced questions from the Patreon. So I have 2 today, and we'll just jump right into those. What is your opinion on acquiring multiple players from an unclear backfield to try and find the hit? For example, acquiring both Zach Moss and Chase Brown for cheap. I really dislike this strategy. I dislike it because sometimes there is no hit. There doesn't have to be. There are backfields where there's no startable running back in there. The example provided is a good example of a backfield I'm not targeting. I think Moss might be okay in 2024. I don't expect either of these players to be the starter in 2025. 2025 running back class is very strong. 2024 running back class was very weak. A lot of aging running backs in the NFL. This rookie class was weak. I think next year is what we call the turnover year for running back in the NFL, kind of like how 2017 was. New generation of running backs comes in, kind of flushes them out. So no, I don't like this strategy. And sometimes I think you can be left holding the bag when either someone is drafted in 2025 or just some random guy comes out and displaces the 2 existing players in the backfield, which happens all the time. So no, not a fan of this. Do you think 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, all top 12, tells us anything about the 2025 quarterback class? I think yes, to a degree. Teams were desperate to get a quarterback this year because there were not going to be the same number of quarterbacks next year. There is no Caleb Williams next year. There is no even Drake May, who was a locked top 5 pick a year out. There's none of that. So, but we have a whole 24 season to play. So nothing is set in stone. But yes, I do think that NFL teams think that the 2025 quarterback class is weaker than 2024, and they do not want to rely on getting a quarterback next year, because you sometimes have classes that are like 2022, where there's 1 quarterback drafted in the first round, Kenny Pickett, who was a disaster anyway, and nothing else. So there's not going to be quarterbacks every year. So I think that did have a small factor. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment with your thoughts on the mock draft. As always, though, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. Make sure you are subscribed if you're not. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my full Dynasty Fantasy Football advice, it's available on the Patreon. where every sign-up helps support my content. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Peace out.